Welcome to the Independent Producers Organization program. This is the program that showcases independent producers, their productions, and provides a forum for discussing issues which affect independent television producers here in the Pacific Northwest.
Okay, greetings everyone. Welcome to the Independent Producers Organization live showcase. And today I'm very excited because our guest is Dennis Gleason of the Darkwing Productions. And he is a volunteer. He is the epitome of someone that volunteers. One time I read an article and I couldn't believe all the things that he had done to help other people. And that's what I look forward to talking about today with Dennis, and anything else, of course, that you feel is kind of important. So tell us, I guess, the main things that you were, especially what do you call it, the contests. I think that's
the contest.
I'm really interested in those because I've been to them where you have been in charge.
Right.
And I've enjoyed that.
Well, first of all, a little bit of background. The program you're speaking of is called Portland Teen Idol, and it is a program that was created by Portland and the Portland Parks Bureau back in 2006. 2007, they had their first competition, several hundred students around Portland metropolitan area, Vancouver, etc. And a girl named Jordan Thompson had won that program. And in 2008, my son and I were just going to an FYE store, saw the sign for Portland Teen Idol. We figure, well, my son's a musician, and so we figured, let's go take a look. Walked in there, took a look, thought it was exciting. They had no video person for their semifinals and finals, so I said, hey, Jeff Milkus, the services manager, do you need some help? He said, sure, of course. So very long story short, they ran out of money in 2010.
Okay.
They provided the opportunity for my company to take over
All right.
the program, and so I, of course, said yes. And then I, of course, then later asked how much funding were you going to provide for the program? And unfortunately, there's not a lot. It's a parks program, but it didn't really matter. I didn't want a program, been around for 4 years. Essentially, at the time, it was a English singing competition, a teen version of American Idol, and it was, again, mostly Portland metropolitan area folks with a concentration on the city of Portland. And
What is the girls involved? Mostly female.
when it comes to contests, for some reason in Portland more so than other places, perhaps, I don't really know, girls like to try out more than boys.
Oh, okay.
And so the split, 2011, I think it was 9-1.
Oh,
And
all
I think last year was closer to 10-1. I think it was like 8-1 this year. And it's just really amazing why so many more boys don't try out.
Okay, yeah.
The reality of it is that if boys were trying out, they would have a better chance of getting in there just because there's fewer boys and we have a certain requirement. We have to have a certain number of boys in our finale. So
Okay.
just by trying out, guys actually have a better opportunity. But the program in general is designed to go from just taking singing, what it originally was, to the next stage. We now include Spanish. So we have a Spanish program. This is our second year with that.
Okay.
And we also had a stand-up comedy program last year. We had a comedian that went around and toured with us, plus also went off and did his own events. And we're looking at adding some very interesting tips and tricks and classes and workshops and a whole bunch of different things next year.
What will these ladies learn? Are they? Is it speaking? Or walking?
Not specific to women, but whomever is involved.
Okay.
It's not just the people that compete that also have the opportunity to learn, but public speaking is one of them, being able to perform. And if you are a performer, you understand the differences between just going up and singing as part of a choir in school versus going out, say, hi, my name is X, addressing the public, talking about your inspirations, talking about a program, sing your song, and then thank the crowd, introduce the next person. We're actually trying to give them a little bit of experience with being more adult, even though most of these students are under the age of 16.
I've been watching some singing lately, and it's true. Certain things to do with the hand
Right.
that are important. And I suppose that's part of their learning.
Right.
That they're,
Well, I
Okay.
mean, it's just like anything else. I mean, it doesn't matter if you're doing something as simple as making toast. There's always a good way to do it, and then there's a great way to do it, and then there's just a complete flat-out wrong way, but you still have it editable, right?
Okay.
You know, that's why they have timers on it now to make it foolproof. But,
hard to wreck a piece of toast. isn't
but
it?
we've had some of the folks that have been in our program had, you know, very big successes nationally.
Okay.
So going from the one credit that's of note, Madison Shanley, she was third place in 2009 for our program. She ended up top 88 of American Idol last year.
Okay. Oh,
And
all right.
we had the first year's winner that I mentioned earlier. Her name was Jordan Thompson, now Jordan Blue. She was top 25 of the TV show Nashville Star talent
Okay.
competition. And we're very happy to announce it's been actually very well publicized, but Aubrey Cleland, which made 11th place in American Idol this season, is our Portland Teen Idol runner-up in 2009. So we hope that she got her start with us and it helped motivate her. She had top 100 the first year, top 42 the second year, and then this year top 11 or 11th place.
What were they learning to do to get in position to win? In other words, speaking or acting or
Our program or in American Idol or
yours?
program?
Yours is the one we're more interested in. right?
well, that's nice to know. Well, the whole process is just more of a teaching the students how competitions go
Okay.
and then having them basically experience it. So it's not like a test, but it's going through individual steps. Like the auditions are very, very loose. There are several of them all over the place. It's basically very flexible. And we go into the competition rounds and become less flexible. And it goes from auditions that might have 3 or 4 of our volunteers helping out to the finale last year, or this year, excuse me, where we had over 50 people supporting our 15 finalists. I mean, that includes the judges and the 18, 19 hair and makeup people, the stage managers, the program directors, the interns. And you've worked with me for many, many years, and you know the type of quality work I try to produce.
Right.
And I was very fortunate to have that many people that were willing to come and help us out on one single day.
Yeah.
So-
yeah. That's right. Okay. I know that I really enjoyed watching those people up on the stage and all that. I thought, oh, this is great. This is great. And then you also came over to 72nd and Herald, the swimming pool place. I can't.
Swimming pool, you mean 72nd?
72nd.
That would be the Mount Scott.
Mount Scott. That's
Right.
right. I remember you did something there, and so
Well, the Mount Scott one you're
Takes a lot
referring
of
to
effort.
specifically, you brought Heather, which is in the control room, your granddaughter, and you brought her to help out potentially if there was any need for on our semifinals.
Okay, all
That
right.
would have been April 2008.
oh,
My bad memory, I can't remember everything.
well,
right?
that's
So,
close
but you're there-
enough. I
you're
don't
there to help
remember
out.
that.
I do. But basically, you're there to help us out, and we ended
Okay.
up, we were covered there. But and that was your first experience with Portland Teen Idol.
Yeah.
And we're very fortunate. This year alone, we had students from 70 schools. That's 70 between interning, volunteering, trying out, auditioning, different things because we have internships. So people that do that, kids that just said, you know what, I don't have the time to go compete, or I don't want to compete, or I should never be singing publicly, but I can provide you with a few minutes, in this case, a minimum of 3 hours commitment to promote the program. You know, send emails out, talk to friends, post things on Facebook or different social media. So kids, no matter what they're interested in, can still participate, even if it doesn't mean necessarily they're competing.
I was going to ask you how you could notify that many people of it, but then of course, like you say, Facebook,
Email. Yep. And we have a
Okay.
requirement, just like the city had. The city had a requirement saying that you had to have a MySpace account. Unfortunately, MySpace is, well, just a space now. So Facebook is that new communication tool, and ironically, it becomes the preferred way of communicating, not just between us and the staff, which we do usually email communication, but to help make sure that the student understands as artists, and some of them are taken serious, some don't take it serious, they have to actually be on those social networks. They need to learn to promote themselves. They need to learn to promote the program. If they ever want to be successful, they can't expect someone to carry them along the entire time. They need that experience of having to change in a small little bathroom to do a production, not be set up in a hotel room every single time they want to change their clothes. Then learn how it is to be on the road versus having everything handed to them, so that hopefully when those that want to be successful they have it all there. They've learned it all.
It's getting involved. When
Yes.
you get involved, the next step is easier and easier.
Right.
I
Absolutely.
really think that, and if you're into it,
Right.
you're, shall we say, material for that kind of thing. Yes.
Right.
Okay.
And it's complicated too. I mean, running a teen program, for instance, is hard enough as it is because it's a program. I mean, you have so many things to think about, from what color certificates are the awards going to be? Are you going to sign them? Are you going to put them in plastic, or are you going to put them in glass? Are you going to just give them paper? Are you going to be like some of these lame programs where they don't give you anything? It's one of those things where you have to decide on what quality level you want. And I'm only one person. I can only do so much. And God bless all the people that help me on my program, but it's sometimes difficult to get them as motivated and as engaged as I can be. But it's just a lot of work. And then when you start throwing kids in there and you have to do background checks on everyone that's involved.
Really?
So I intentionally make sure that the city does a background check on me every single season before they give me a dime. I'm not worried about it, but I mean, I used to be a volunteer in law enforcement, so I'm used to being checked. So I'm good with that. And I'd prefer to have everyone that's going to spend alone time with the kids be background checked so parents feel comfortable with them, versus some of these other programs. They don't even think about the concept of protecting the students. They just want to protect their own interests. But all these things cost money. All these things cost time.
The background checks, I'm sorry, that's going to take some money
About
out of your,
anywhere between
more
$35
mon-
to $45 per person.
You have to take
per
money out
year.
of your pocket unless someone gets it
Right.
to you as some kind of a nonprofit or something like that.
Right. There's sometimes we can make exceptions. For instance, if they're 18 years old but they're in high school still, even the school districts allow people to, that be classification that they're okay, even though they're technically 18 years old. And so we use that exemption as well. We know if they're a volunteer with a school. I mean, I volunteer with Westview High School and the Beaverton School District and some of the schools. And so I get my background checked all the time. And if I know other students have been or other individuals have been, I'm not as worried about it. But, when you have just one-off person wanting to help, even if I know them really well for years, it doesn't mean these parents, feel comfortable. I mean, this year's winner was, and last year's winner, both years' winners were 13-year-old girls.
That's right.
And
that's touchy.
if I was a parent of a girl, I mean, my boys are 20 and over, I would be completely flabbergasted if they did not do a background check with some strange people that were hanging out with my kid. Male,
Okay.
female, doesn't matter which, but I provide that because I believe it's a necessity of our program to make us legitimate versus those that don't. So,
Wow. Yeah. More to it, like you say.
Right.
Complicated.
Complicated.
That's right.
and again, it's not just a contest. You're not just, congratulations, you're the winner, yay, let's go home. This is a summer tour too. So not only do they go through that one day, congratulations, here's the ranking order up to a certain number. Now let's go on tour. So we spend the next 3 months going all over the place performing.
Okay.
And we go down to the state fair. We help work with them to help manage their talent competition. Our kids perform there. Our kids help MC that event. I MC it.
Down there at the state fair.
Yes.
You must have been just down there this last time.
Yeah, this is our third year participating at the state fair, the second year helping run their talent competition.
Okay.
The first year was before I was involved, but it's
Okay.
very fun and exciting, I'll tell you.
Right. Now, was there, what's another thing to do with the volunteering that you might want to cover?
Well, one of the things I was asked to cover was last year ABC Channel 2 did what's called a Heroes Extraordinaire, not Heroes Extraordinaire, excuse me, Everyday Hero.
Okay.
And they basically go through the community and spotlight different individuals that can provide volunteer service. And Steve Dunn said I was the ultimate volunteer.
Okay.
The joke at the
That's-
station is I'm the Michael Jordan of volunteerism, which I think is a little bit off because I don't think I'm that good. I'm just dedicated. But
Unrelated is all.
I just take more time to spend helping people and doing things that will help people indirectly
That's right.
than
I know
as many
that.
things for myself. And I like being recognized by the fact that other people will see that and go off and do it, not because I like being recognized. It makes a difference between the two. So
Okay, all right. But I know you've done some other types of volunteering.
Sure.
Or so. Okay. What?
Well, I mean, I've done many different things. The classic wine auction that's every single year, end of February, first part of March, raised anywhere between $2.5 to $3 million in a single night for various different charities. And I believe this coming year will be the 10th year for me. And not only am I volunteering, but I'm also a lead for the runners up there, helping make sure the numbers are right, answering questions, get the slips out to the public, make sure they get their signatures in the back. That's just one thing. Virginia Garcia Healthcare Symposium, I helped produce that, the video side of it, for a couple of years. So there's so many events, it's really hard to cover, all of them. But the DECA organization, I'm very proud of. I traveled this time with my wife for the first time to, in this case, Anaheim, California, to judge for the international competition. I'm a former state president of the college division here in Oregon and have been involved over 20 years, and very excited about that organization. And there's just so many great causes. Pageants. Yeah. I never thought I'd see myself in pageants before, and then of course that's
right.
My wife is actually the winner. She's a Miss Oregon Plus America winner for this year. And then public access television, I think between TVC TV, I've produced, directed, or helped with over 500 television shows.
That's right. That's
over the years.
Of course, that's back when they were really, we were all really part of them, and they were
right. That was back when, on the political side of it, it was more of a nonprofit. Let's do what's right for the community. And now, due to certain circumstances, very much beyond our control, as much as now you were more of an observer on that end of it.
I was there when they voted it.
Right.
To squish it a little bit.
A little bit, 95% reduction, yes.
Okay. Well, squish it
100
a lot.
producers for 3 remote laptops to edit, yes. Yeah, it's. I have my own personal opinion, and I'm not going to bash TVC TV or Metro Communications Commission, the people that made the decisions and convinced the commission to do it. I have a lot of friends that are on that team, and it's very disappointing what they did. I wish I had the financial and capability to provide for the public.
That's right.
It's disheartening that they never really took any money from education. It was always a direct line feed from PCC, and all the community money pretty much goes right to the government programming. I think they don't spend money correctly in a lot of different ways, but they won't review it, and I don't have the energy or desire to start a fight. And so it is what it is, and most people have stepped away from that because of it. So,
well, since we are talking about cable access,
yes,
let me say that right here, Portland Community Media is just all we could ask for.
Yeah.
They are just great, and they have been, and no matter what, we just keep. We realize we have to keep fighting.
Right.
You can't ever sit there and say, well, the money will just come in and we'll be okay. No, you have to get out there and struggle for it. But at the same time, I want to say Metro East in Gresham is the greatest. They are just wonderful. And to me, they set examples for how many things should be done. And I love going out there. They're such nice people, and I really appreciate everything to do with Metro East out in Gresham. They have Channel 21.
Right.
I have to say they got good stuff.
Right, and they have an advantage of the fact that they just had a complete remodel several years back. It's now probably around 10 years, but
you mean the new building?
The new building, yeah. It's
right.
over by the Gresham Transit Center. It's a really nice building.
Oh yes.
And it's like, if folks don't know what public access is versus regular television, the public access side of it is more like the step sibling that's left in the closet, so to speak, and the television stations get the nice new glamorous equipment, which they really don't, by the way. But bottom line is, public access has very little amount of money, wherever it may be, and generally speaking, unless there's a government agency backing it somehow, like TVC TV at least had money coming in from MAC that was distributed through, whereas here at PCM, where it's a nonprofit agency, so every dollar is fought for. And Metro East, I'm not really sure how the structure goes. But I think the hardest part is for the public to understand is that there is no voice whatsoever if they don't support public access. Then you get 100% corporate programming and government programming.
Right. That's what's bad.
So
that's what we have to look out for.
Exactly, and that's why we created the original the Political Action Committee through the state of Oregon to help save TVC-TV originally, and me and a few other producers headed it up to trying to make sure that we didn't lose all our functionality and capability, which again, we lost the majority of it, but we did save some important parts. But it is important for the public to know that without supporting of things like this, which is considered part of the arts, it's part of the, one of the aspects that is unfortunately not utilized as much as it should be, it goes away completely if the public doesn't support it. So
I know that when watching television, supposedly I'm surfing, but not really. I usually know what I want to watch.
Right.
I'm still going to go to channel 11, then channel 21, 22, and 23, primarily in East County. And
which are all public access stations
that's
for
those
those
are
that might
the
be paying
main
attention. Yeah.
public asset, and I'm just liable to find something really neat on
Yep.
one of them. And so, yeah, they're just great out there. So, I didn't know if you had some other thoughts about TVC-TV. It's been so long since I've been out there. I made one trip out there.
Have you been to the new building?
The new, well, they've been there a while.
Yeah, a new building being within the last 3 years, 2.5
3?
years. Yeah, 2.5, 3 years.
Prior to that, they were in.
They were at the ACMA, Arts and Communications Magnet Academy, the Beaverton School, high school.
So
now it's
okay.
actually.
I think I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yes, they're out there. I'm sure they can be looked up. No reason people can't
Yeah, Mac.
contact them. And
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for anybody that can make the facilities work for them, I mean, I say
Right.
feel free. I mean, I think I'm still an active producer there. I have to double check and make sure how it works there is a little different than it used to be. And honestly, since I cut back to services, I mean, you unfortunately can't even have a stand-up talk show because the camera doesn't even let you do that in the studio. So my productions are always going to be remote that I would submit through. And I'm trying to work with PCM here to
yeah,
bring my teen idol programs and things I do with the OMPA and a few of the organizations here to allow us to be able to foster a different kind of community type programming that has now unfortunately been lost to the TVC-TV side of it. So,
okay.
but on the somewhat similar basis, what we talked about earlier was some of the transition things that my company's doing that is really related to nonprofit. It's pretty much everything that my company has done in the last, I guess, 10 years that is nonprofit based. And that is almost solely related to public access programming, going out and videotaping nonprofit type works, my board service, my committee service, and Portland Teen Idol, and take all of them and wrap them into a brand spanking new entity, which we're calling Darkwing Foundation. One of the components, there's three main, one for teens, one for normal funding and personnel management, which you have to have. But the part I want to talk about a little bit is the Darkwing Community Productions, which is, again, a nonprofit program designed to help public access producers, public access staff, volunteers, even agencies get resources, provide information about resources that are available, and then be able to get those productions done. Public access TV, public access radio, independent film, things that are really not designed to make money, but still need money to make them. Student programs, videos you do online, even sports teams that don't have a nonprofit association of some sort. Like Little League, et cetera, that need funding, but they're not a nonprofit, but they're not a for-profit. Basically, want to try to create some kind of a program that includes training, development, internships, and production capability, and utilize the resources available, again, as a nonprofit.
Okay, speaking of radio,
Yes.
Metro East has a radio station. I think it's KZME.
Okay.
And it operates a little different location from their main building out there, but they fought and fought, just like they fought to build the building, and succeeded succeeded with that, and then succeeded with the KZME, the radio station. I can't tell the kilocycles.
Gotcha. Now, is it part of the actual Metro East cable station then?
On its own.
It's on its own.
I think it's on its own
Okay.
because it's radio.
And I honestly haven't learned anywhere near as much as I'm intending on learning about the public access radio side of it.
Oh.
I'm hoping it's somewhat similar. One of the things that is looming, of course, is the fact that we're moving away from television, more on internet-based entertainment. And so the shows that are being produced and will be broadcast on television now in probably 10 years is all going to be broadcast on a internet location and then cycled through to your TV monitor. So
Yeah.
eventually, I think we're going to go away with standard television programming.
Well, okay, except I don't know, what you're saying is sitting here and here's the television screen,
Right.
wanting to watch what, old MASH shows or something like that, and I can't visualize sitting there. Whereas you go into your living room and you sit down in your nice chair,
Yeah.
and there's a television over there, clear.
But see, that's maybe a misconception with different generations that may not be as up to date with it. But you can, technically speaking, attach almost any television screen or television set to a laptop.
Okay.
So you can actually, in fact, at my house, we have it set up. We can play the Wii, we can do cable, we can do DVDs, we can set up laptops. I mean, I've used it on for my computer screen where I have my laptop here, but it's actually presented up on my really good, my 55-inch widescreen, so you can see everything. And reality of it comes down to is eventually the clarity of online videos is going to be the crux to it. There's going to have to be some kind of a technical advancement that lets television-related quality, notwithstanding what you're playing it on, but actually have that quality online, so that the quality that you see it on, whether it be a monitor or TV, is almost as if you're doing it on a regular television broadcast. And that's what it's waiting for, time's waiting for. Once it gets there, it's going to be so expensive to run television networks, it's going to be harder when you can just upload it and have people play it that way. Or you can do streaming projects. Like the Amy Roloff charity event, 2 years in a row, we had done live feeds for the event. You could watch it as it's happening.
Oh, okay.
Now, we took it off this year. Metro East actually came out and volunteer produced this year's program, but we have a lot of options as far as community productions, and I'd encourage people that have thought about it or interested or didn't even realize that there's capabilities out there for people to create programs, TV shows, movies, shorts, videos, whatever, to get a hold of somebody at a public access television station. Get a hold of you, get a hold of me, get a hold of any producer. I'm a producer at TVC TV, but I'm also here at PCM. I think I'm still live, I'm not sure. But
That's right. You don't know. I'm not.
you're not,
Because I live out of the area.
you're outside the area.
That's
so
all you
gotcha.
need to be, and you can't do anything. Go ahead. I just.
No, you're fine. But I mean, it's just one of the things that the communities have to understand is that not everyone has a public access station nearby. There's
That's right.
There's 9 or 8 stations in Oregon, and if you're not within the direct community, sometimes you don't know about it, and so you don't have a chance to say, hey, I would like to produce something. And it's like, well, sorry, where's your hundreds of thousands of dollars to go produce it on TV? Well, this is TV. This is just as real television broadcast as doing it on Fox or any of these other network shows. The difference is we don't have $50 million of equipment and 50 people producing it, ahead of time. But it's still television, just as valuable. Sometimes even harder to do.
There's almost nowhere else like this, anywhere except Boston, is my understanding.
Okay.
They have this kind of availability for cable access, and we are so fortunate. Like we just discussed these 3 here.
Yep.
Vancouver, they have it. It's not the same. It's not really catering to producers. It's catering to the government access.
Well, I think
and
they're
all
trying
that.
to transition off of that. I think what happened is CCTV, and I think that's
Clark County.
Clark County, right?
Okay.
So Clark, not to be confused with Capital Community down in Salem, right?
Oh, that's
So,
right. They're there.
So Clark County originally was for public access and for government programming, and then from what I understand is they went away from the public side of it for several years, and I think they're coming back to it.
Oh,
Which
okay.
would be hopeful because there's so many things that the value of public access is more than just videotaping meetings that go on, like the government access programs, which is pretty much just videography. There's not really any content decisions there. They're not really producing anything. They have no control over content, so that's why they're not really producers. They're just videotapers. But it's still important to get the message out. Whereas if they have a community program there, just like they do here, you can come up with anything you want to. I have my Source Oregon book here. This that's produced by OMPA, Oregon Media Production Association. This one here is last year's directory. It has pretty much everyone related to the entertainment industry, and this has Grimm on the front cover there. You know, folks can see it. But OMPA.org is the nonprofit, and I serve on the board of it. But the most important thing about it is a nonprofit designed to help people realize the capability of Oregon.
Okay.
So just as they say, well, this is how you take advantage of money that's available through the government or a subsidy called OPIF. I believe it's the Oregon Production Incentive Fund or something similar to that. Don't quote me on that. And then there's an indigenous version. So if you're an Oregonian using the money versus an outside of Oregon, we're providing that same thing for public access. If you want to create something, there's public access available for you at very, very little cost. You know, it's nonprofit. You know, you're not supposed to go out there and make money off of it. That's not the point of public access. It's to be able to utilize your talents. I think it would be the #1 best training capability for students that want to learn television production. You could talk about it till you're blue in the face, but until you physically show up and do it,
That's right.
it's kind of like a mute point.
That's right. We've had, I always hear about orientation is the very first thing you come into. I think we're back to that here. It's still a good thing to have, to get an outline of what's going on.
Right.
Of course, they say the problem is it's better for everybody to go to one of those orientations no matter what.
Right.
After that, sure, most of them are probably going to drop off, but those that stay on, great.
Right.
But orientations are still good. That was the last thing I went to at Tualatin Valley Television.
Okay.
Is an orientation.
And another thing too is understanding that every single thing that we do, even if you want to learn your police department, for instance, the good police departments have a citizens observer program where you can go on ride-alongs with the police department to see what they do.
Right.
Some of them actually have community programs where you can actually physically take a class, get to meet the chief and meet some of the officers and learn about what the police department does, which not everyone understands. They see the police officer that pulls you over, but they don't see above and beyond that in many cases.
Oh yeah, right.
And those basically citizens academies or whatever they're called in different cities are very valuable. I mean, I was a volunteer, but I didn't really understand parts of it until I was actually through the Beaverton Citizens Academy and got a chance to go, see the trainings facilities, see the different people. Chief Bishop was a friend of mine from a board relationship in the past with the Police Activities League. I got to understand what his job more entails based on the Citizens Academy, and it opened my eyes to what I thought I understood. Mm-hmm. I thought as a citizen and as a civilian, I fully understood, how thousands of hours of patrol time prepared me to understand, and really it didn't, because of that specific training designed to help you, and it's no different than learning how to build a bicycle versus how to ride it. It's very different, very different.
Oh, that's right. I am looking forward to going on I don't know how you get involved to go on
a ride-along?
Ride-along, right.
We'll talk about it after the show.
Oh, really?
You tell me what department, I'll tell you who to talk to.
Okay.
It might have changed the person's name, but the department hasn't changed, so.
All right.
But there's plenty of opportunity.
Okay, and maybe when they take those people along, they're good for witnesses or something like, who knows?
Well, yes. Unfortunately, sometimes it can take a lot of time off the quote-unquote witness or the observer's time. If you witness 99% of the traffic stops and what have you, they're not going to be contested. You're usually fine. It's it's only things that there are major events that take place that require years of background checks or years of development to get to court, where they're going to need an extra person statement. Most officers, if they're any good at what they do, they'll get a statement from their citizen ride-along person just to cover their bases in case someone asks the question.
Okay.
If you're showing up to something, it's not as important as if you're witnessing it.
Okay.
So if you're at a patrol car and you get a 911 call and you're responding to it, the officer's getting it at the same time you do. You're seeing the same thing. You're not going to necessarily be able to provide a lot of detail, probably, into what's going on, unless, like, for some reason you've been, deputized where you can chase someone down or something. But generally speaking, if you're in the car and you witness it happening, now you're involved in the circumstance. Now you have to have that statement.
Oh, okay.
So it all that matters the difference. And every city is different, every county is different, the state's different. One state's different from another one. And so it's a lot of fun. But most importantly, you'll learn a lot.
Yeah.
And you
right.
find out that most police officers spend 80% of their time doing nothing related to law enforcement. Paperwork,
right.
or
That's
waiting, or watching.
You always have to cover those bases.
Right.
They're endless bases, I guess you would almost call it.
Well, the good thing in Oregon, as far as that's concerned, I'll drop the whole point of it, is that we have some of the best drivers in the country. We have people that actually care enough about each other that
okay.
we have people that are relatively decent drivers. That's why when people come from different states that drive like crazy people, Oregonians honk and get mad about it because that's not how Oregonians typically work. We believe that everyone, you take a little bit more time to get there, you give people a more space, be more respectful to each other. You get there faster and you get there in one piece. And it works better for us, it seems like.
Like the people at the four-way stop.
Yeah, sometimes.
Everybody's trying to be more courteous.
Sometimes taking a little bit more courtesy than.
It's a little too much courtesy. In other words, when it isn't, it's their turn.
There's a difference
they
between
need to
causing
go.
delay and being courteous, right? Yeah. No, it's the people tailgating you because they want to be 1/4, 1/10 of 1 second further ahead than if they would have just given you the right amount of space so you don't run into the back window, because you follow too close.
That's right.
I mean, I had an accident where I was at a stop sign, car pulled up next to me. I had to pull up further so I can see, so I can make my turn. The semi truck behind me thought I left the curve, wasn't paying attention. Boom.
Oh.
Back hood of my trunk was in the back seat, basically.
Oh.
And I had to go through months of chiropractic because someone just did not pay attention. So.
Wow.
But that's no different than anything else, and it's part of normal life. The difference is whether you intentionally drive with the design to interrupt other people's lives and your own,
Oh yeah.
or if you're trying to get to point A and point B safely. And you can see it on the way here. There's a few people that really should have been pulled over and taken the car away and said, you know what, when you grow up, you can have the car back.
Oh.
And then there's other people that were driving a little bit slow, but that's still better than driving excessive. So.
That's right. I think the drivers here in Oregon, they drive a lot in the rain.
Well,
And I think
it's
that-
Oregon, of course they're going. That's all we
so-
have, 80% of the time.
Right. So that means if they really think they're not going to be more careful when it's wet, and that might become a part of how they drive.
Right.
And that's good. I know I'm always more careful.
Yep.
When it's wet. It just
Especially,
just have to be.
especially in the fall because you've had all the summer's oil.
That's
and
right.
All the stuff that's on the street that it doesn't wash away with constant rain.
It's just waiting for you
Just
to.
waiting for you to go sliding on it. Sometimes in September when it starts raining, it could be more slick than during the wintertime when it's icy out. So.
No, that's right. That's right. Well, you had some other goals that you might have wanted to.
Oh, I just put some notes myself of different things to make sure to cover, just because it's related to public access and the producing and such, is some of the different shows. Now, Grimm, obviously everyone pretty much knows that Grimm is filmed here in Portland. It's one of those things where you actually film in a city where you call it the same as the show is saying it is. Like Leverage, it was filmed here, but was it Portland or was it Boston?
Oh.
It's like, well, what city are you really in and what are you filming in and what have you? And so you have Portlandia, which just about everyone knows Portlandia. I think they're going on their 4th season for that program. Yeah. My wife actually helped. She was the hairstylist for the 1st season of Portlandia. And her and myself and my son actually all got stand-in shots the 1st season, different episodes. And then you have Rodeo Girls. I don't know if you've heard of that show.
No.
It's in pre-production right now. In fact, it's filming today. In fact, it probably wrapped up today's filming. 2 more days left to pick up shots. My wife is working on that. Darcy LaPierre is the main celebrity. She's Jean-Claude Van Damme's ex-wife. They live down in Wilsonville.
All right.
And we have several other different projects here. Twilight, everyone knows that parts of the movie were filmed here in the Portland metropolitan area, as well as mostly in Washington the last few seasons, or last few episodes. And we have a lot of huge productions that have been produced here, part or in full, that people just don't realize.
These productions are ones where they're getting sponsors to pay to have them put on major television stations.
Some cases, or they are the major TV stations. It comes down to is what type of program is it? Is it a movie or is it a television show?
Okay.
You divide those two some people that don't know, they lump them together. but they're definitely not together.
Oh,
The
okay.
the movie side of it, is it independent, or is it more corporate based? If it's a corporate based, like the Twilight series ended up being, where you have a big giant production house, it's telling everyone what to do, lots of money involved, a lot of people, a lot of time, press, publications, or independent film, which usually has a very small dollar amount in it. They take advantage of the OPIF money that Oregon has, the 10 to 15%,
Oh,
whatever
okay.
the kickback bonus is for doing the productions here in Oregon.
oh.
And
all right.
then you have the TV side of it, public access, free or very low cost. Then it moves up to cable broadcasting, which is a lot of the shows. TLC was for Little People Big World. I worked with Amy Roloff with that. I mean, I wasn't on the show, but she was, I worked with her,
Okay.
and their show was on TLC. Then you have A&E, which I believe is the one that's doing Rodeo Girls, and then you have Turner, I think, was the one that was doing Leverage, and ABC is obviously doing Grimm. I think it's ABC. You can probably get crucified now if I got the wrong station, but the idea essentially is that depends on who's paying for it, depends on everything else.
And that includes what station it goes on.
It includes very specifically what station, or in this
Okay.
case, what channel, because if it's actually on cable only, it's not really a station. It's pretty much
Right.
broadcast only. There's no real
You mean
home.
cable access?
Or no, cable television in general, like Comcast, or public access is simply a nonprofit channel, so
Right,
to speak.
right,
But it's a
okay.
physical station. You can go physically come in like we are today and produce something, versus TLC where you produce it somewhere else,
Okay.
edit it, send it to them, they broadcast it, type thing. So they're pretty much, most cable stations are broadcast only.
I think
So-
they're like buying the show.
Some cases.
Okay.
In some cases, there's so many different variations depending on what
Yeah.
state you live in, what cable station. Some people, the cable stations are going out and buying it intentionally. Some are asking for it. Some are buying it after it's been broadcast for a year, or some people do a pilot and they pick the pilot up. There's lots of variations to it, and I'm starting to learn that. I'm not an expert by any means on how that works, and so if I'm wrong about something, please don't yell at me. But it's complicated, much more so than I ever thought it was going to be.
Right. I think there's a lot of talent out there that goes to put together. I mean, they come up, first of all, they got to come up with an idea,
Right.
whether it's Grimm or Portlandia. They got to come up with an idea, and then all these people work towards making something really neat.
Right.
And that's worth something.
Yeah.
That's worth something.
And that's why I like cable access. I mean, it gets a bad rap, unfortunately, because it's public access. But if you look at the real actual value, you're looking at usually 1, 2, maybe 3 people coming up with an entire concept and then running with it. In some cases, my friend Dr. Don Baham,
Yeah.
he's done his
Oh, yeah.
conversations with Dr. Don. I think he's on 8th year doing it, over 500 episodes, just that one show alone.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very much canned. He's got it listed exactly how it's going to go. He uses the same terminology, sometimes the same slides for a year at a time. But he's very consistent. You know what you're going to get when you get there, but it's still coming up with content all the time. He has a new show every week because he films it twice a month, and those twice a month get redistributed. And it's just a matter of some of these other programs, like when I did Portland Teen Idol, we had like 4 or 5 cameras filming one event, and we had to get 5.5 hours of content between all these cameras into basically a 1-hour show, or
Okay.
2-hour show, as the case ended up being, 2 1-hour shows. But I mean, it takes a lot more creativity than if you have 60 people, all of them have a very specific job. Their individual roles, not downplaying the importance, but the amount of work it takes to get there is shared amongst a large number of people is a lot easier than programs like this sometimes that can be more on the fly, or 1 or 2 people coming up with everything.
Who will do all the editing on that? I mean, you're talking about.
Well, it depends on the project. If you talk about my projects, I have 2 interns that are doing editing. I
Okay.
have other people that are involved. My cousin Brandon is in film school for the Art Institute, and
Yeah,
I have many different people that are willing to help me with editing, and we're actually looking at trying to find some more editing folks for it. And it's all nonprofit. It's no one's making any money off it. It's just basically trying to get footage that we did during the year of different students performing and such, and get them out there so the students have them, if nothing else. It just takes so much time, and we don't have the money to pay for anything. So, and since it's nonprofit, we're not going to expect people to pony money up to do editing. We don't,
Yeah.
it's more about the kids' participation anyway. So if we get video, great. If we don't, well, that's okay too. So.
More about them learning and all that.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm sure.
Absolutely.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Well, again, you still had some more objections.
Objections? No.
Objectives.
Objectives.
Sorry.
Yes.
Sorry.
I object, Your Honor. I don't know why, but give me a minute. Well, I just put down a few
Everything.
things to chat about. And one, I wanted to talk a little bit about my Portland Teen Idol program, help people understand a little bit about what it is and what it's going to become next year and what it might come in the future. And this is to help people like yourself that are interested in potentially taking, a part of the future of it. And maybe your granddaughter Heather is in another room that might be interested in participating as well. But Portland Teen Idol originally, again, just singing in English, now added Spanish and stand-up comedy. We're looking at next year, as we transition our nonprofit agency that we're creating, we want to start including other elements. And this is where we're going to be heavily depending upon the public and some of our friends and anyone that is willing to provide comment or feedback. Just go to Facebook and look up the new Portland Teen Idol and to make a comment there, appropriate please. Feel free to like the page, we need the numbers.
Okay.
But the idea is we want to try to figure out what would be a good set of competitions that we decide on, and then all the things that we have going forward, competition-wise, are that subset for the next X number of years.
Okay.
We want to do a business segment that's similar to DECA, as I mentioned earlier. We want to do a pageant. Again, my wife won that title, so we're already involved in pageants. I've helped produce for years the international pageant. There's certain things that we really want to make sure to cover. So if people think that dance or entertainment or hosting / emceeing, if people want to do dancing, they want to do bands or whatever, just need to get feedback of what they want us to showcase. Even sports, if someone wants to sports or gaming, it doesn't matter. It's about what's important to teens.
Right.
That's the most important thing. And from an education standpoint, what do teens want to learn? Because we want to create a classroom for it as well. Workshops, classrooms, both of them. Single time, single day events versus an ongoing classroom type setup. And of course, any people or companies, nonprofits, any that works with teens or interested in working with teens that are interested in working with a nonprofit agency to help develop really cutting edge and/or not available anywhere else type programming. I mean, how many other entertainment related nonprofits are there in Portland?
I know that they're active here with teens.
Right, at the TV at the PCM.
Ollie, they call it Ollie, and I'm not sure what that stands for, but they are trying to teach teens.
Good.
And get them involved in television, making their own shows.
Sure.
I've seen those. They did one about Vanport. Went out
Vancouver,
and
Portland. Yeah.
And interviewed people that had been there, I think, when it flooded.
Right.
Oh, very.
The first time.
Very creative.
Not to be confused with 2005 or what have you. I think it was 2005. Was it 2005 or was it 1995? 1995.
Yeah, 95.
I remember I was my job. I had to actually be the Spanish department for a day because the freeway was underwater. There's people that worked in the Spanish department couldn't show up, and I'm trying to speak Spanish. Is what little I know.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
but Vanport is. I've had a couple opportunities to work on projects related to Vanport, car show that never went off the ground, and things like that. So.
Well, I've had the car show people here.
Have you?
On our show, yeah. I know them. They're in my Toastmaster club.
Okay.
And so we'll have them back, say February.
February.
Something like that.
I think the irony of that whole thing is that on the way to the Portland Teen Idol semifinals back in 2008, when we were just, the television production side of it, we weren't actually ones running it or owning it for the city. On the way there, we stopped by to get lunch, and there was a car show going on in the parking lot next to Izzy's, which at the time was one of our sponsors.
They do that, yeah.
And so we were in that parking lot going through it, and apparently one of the girls there, it was my son's friend from Vancouver, and so we got a chance to do my one and only talk show, Summer Cruisin' or something like that, actually for a car show. So I actually have a car show under my belt. Not really organized, but at least have something there. So it is fun to see those really cool cars. Some are really nice and new, some are more vintage, but definitely very impressive commitment.
See the good weather. Got to be some good weather. And I asked them, some of the people involved in that, I say, what do they do with their cars? Well, they put them in garages for one thing, and then they trailer them.
They tarp them, they take the tarp off every 60 days or less and make sure that everything's spotless if they even have the car stay underneath that tarp for that long. And Some people are committed or should be.
Well, it probably isn't that hard to say, like you said, go to Izzy's Saturday at 1 o'clock on this such and such a date.
Right.
Probably not that hard.
Not hard. And again, it comes down to social media, which unfortunately is going to be becoming the #1 communication device. We have the Oregon's Got Talent event
Incredible.
coming up. That's for the OMPA on the 26th of October, which we're inviting people to come out and find out about, entertainment industry, meet different people in it. Gus Van Sant has participated in OMPA events. We're hoping to get him there and a few other people. And, if projects like that, you have to really use the social media to promote, get them there. LinkedIn, the Facebook, Twitter, for those people that use Twitter. I'm not really much of a Twitter.
Okay.
But there's other medias out there as well. So
I was going to ask you how involved you were with social media. You're
Well-
totally for it, obviously.
well, we have to have it. I mean, there's no way to really survive in the entertainment industry
Yeah.
and take yourself seriously if you're not connected to at least some of the media. I think Twitter is kind of over the top. It's not really informative anymore. It's designed for people that want to dictate people, or not dictate. That's not a good word, but monopolize somebody's time. And
Politics
me
is
personally,
an
or
impression I have as to how involved Twitter is.
oh, well, I don't know how the word politics would
Okay.
apply to it, but I mean,
All right.
you get people that will sit there and they'll be in the middle of an event or in the middle of having a meeting or something like that, and they're tweeting when they're supposed to be doing their job.
Right. Okay.
So it's like, come on, people. I mean, I'm very much a Facebook user, but I don't get on it very often. I'm not a huge social networking person. And as active as I am, I have a day job. I have, full-time day job, sometimes 50 to 70 hours, sometimes I have to travel for it. I have medical related issues due to a car accident after 9/11 that prevents me sometimes from being able to do things. I still get so much done because I don't spend all my time surfing the internet and
Yeah,
playing on
okay.
social networking. I'm at level 350 on Candy Crush, but who doesn't inspire to be there, right?
Okay.
But other than that, I really don't spend that much time
Okay.
on social media. But I know it's
Right.
important. Our
That's
Teen
right.
Idol program, we post things up there, mostly pictures, and talk about events that are coming up. And again, they're performing at Oregon's Got Talent. They performed
Yeah.
at many different events. We're looking at, I met earlier today with a producer that we might be able to have our Teen Idol winner be able to be guests on their show. And we've had people sing national anthem for like air shows. One girl got to sing the national anthem for 24-hour Daytona. Portland Trail Blazers, you name it. Some of our very talented kids have an opportunity to do that. And so, going back to what the original conversation was, is that there's so many things going on in Portland that most
Right.
people don't realize, and the social media has helped link us into that by paying attention to the events that are important in our areas or whatever your interests are.
I've seen there's so many things in the A&E and all that, which is not necessarily
Isn't that
what we're
paper?
after, but
Isn't that called a paper?
yeah.
They used to have those, right? They still have the Oregonians.
It's funny you should mention that.
I don't look at those paper very often.
They just this past week or two, the Oregonian has gone into the thing where you will only get a paper on Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Okay.
You only get, otherwise you're supposed to go to your computer, which isn't all that easy.
Oregon Live. For those people that don't use a computer every second of the day,
Okay.
it may not be as easy. I can understand part of the reason. I mean, when I was trying to pay for my son's adoption, I couldn't make enough money in my day job, so I was getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning and going delivering newspapers for about 9 months.
Oh.
And the hardest day of all was Mondays because there was really no paper. It is so small
Oh, okay.
that, I mean, the Oregonian must be going out there saying, what can we make up today so we have something to fill our paper, because we're not on a coupon day Tuesday, we're not on a, let's get 5 people out to deliver the one Sunday paper because it has all the other events on it. Monday's paper is so small and so light that you can't even deliver
That's
it.
right.
It's-
I remember
that's how
that.
small. So, and they're not the only one that's cutting back. I know a bank that's actually having to cut back on their interbranch mail to help reduce the costs of MAC mailing, what they call it, from one branch to another location, just because it's too expensive to continue to do daily services, and they're having to come up with technology solutions to help prevent them having to physically mail stuff off every single day.
Okay, I still contend that it's nicer to hold the paper, the newspaper, and sit in your chair and relax and read the paper. Of course, there's the crossword puzzle and all that, but it's easier to do that. And it's just like we were saying about the television as opposed to watching the computer. It's just where you can sit back and relax
Right.
in a more comfortable thing.
Well, the hard part is, and I know we're ticking down the minutes because, like any producer, I'm always watching the time.
Oh.
But the idea essentially is that as our technology moves forward and as our society's lack of patience continues to show forth, I mean, the idea is that we need the information now. And that is what is the biggest handicap with a newspaper. Even if it is nice. I mean, I'll be honest, I get project documentation I review for my day job. It's a project management related position. And even though I physically can see them online, I do prefer to print them off, go through page by page, use these things called pens, and mark up things, make comments to myself, questions I need to ask the project manager or development team. And so when I get to the point of typing up my 6,000 item email, at least I have it all down there. But I do prefer the paper, but not every time. I prefer the paper when I can get to it immediately. If I have to wait for something I need, I have a tendency to be like a lot of people, I'm impatient.
Okay.
But I multitask. I mean, this is the fourth thing I've done today.
Okay.
Tonight coming on this show, and I have another show after this, right? For another part of it. So it's like so many things going on in a single day. It's just multitasking. And if you're having to wait for something, like a paper is an example. If I had to wait for the paper, depending on what time it gets delivered, depends on whether or not I can do anything.
We never had a problem with that. It was 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and
but if you're waiting for the next day's paper, you have to wait all that time for the next day. Even if it is 3 in the morning, where I'm looking at the back of my eyelids very happily, thank you, I still have to wait that time for the next paper.
Yeah, so. We're okay. We're going to talk just a little bit, somewhat more now, and then we'll be finished. And in that time, I wanted you to finish those items that you were planning on doing.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Well, and I covered majority of them. The part that I want to, make sure to employ people is, again, supporting people like yourself and myself and public access programming and the different projects that are going on. Even if you don't have a public access station near you, support your public access stations. Well, again, this is nonprofit. If PCM doesn't get the money, people get laid off. The space that we're in today is being paid for by somebody, and a little bit of help from a large number of people does actually work. I mean, the idea is if 1,000 people put $5 into it, do the math, how much money that is, versus having to put all that burden onto 1 or 2 people or 1 or 2 organizations is harder. The majority of budget holder for this program, I believe, is the city of Portland, and it's been reduced because of different programs the city has to do. It knows it's valuable, of course, but we want the public to know that. And having to do with my teen programs, I want to make sure folks that are, if you're really interested in teen-related entertainment, English or Spanish, and we're looking at multiple other languages as well. If that's something that you're passionate about, we just need to connect to see maybe there's some synergies. Maybe we can get you to help work out. We're looking at bringing on board members here shortly to create an actual foundation architecture, committees and things. And so we're just hoping people keep an open mind. If you know me already and you probably already know how to get a hold of me, then let's talk. So
no, that's right. That's right. I just this is such a good source here, the Portland Community Media, and one of the things I always feel funny about, they do so many have so many advanced things.
Sure.
I mean, these lights are all this cold lights now, and so all of a sudden the electric bill went down.
Yep, absolutely.
And just there's so many things that they can do now.
And it's more comfortable. It's only 900 degrees instead of 15,000 degrees.
Okay,
which
that's
sometimes
probably
is a big deal if you're in a small room with closed doors and padding.
No, that's right. That's right. I'm trying. I still think the Oregonian will come out just fine. They still have plenty of pages. Yep. They still have plenty of news. I think they've just However, they've really confused me because they keep talking about digital. Well, okay, you were doing fine before you did that.
Right.
So,
It's just the difference between analog and digital signals, and the different equipment between non-HD, standard def, and high def versus, all the different technology sources that are coming out. People are misusing and reusing titles and terms that have been long gone, forgotten, and now trying to recycle them. And again, just a matter of, it's never going to end, right? Someone's going to come up with a nickname
always
or
a
an
new,
acronym
a
or
new
something.
thing.
It'll be new only because the person that came up with the term didn't realize it's actually old.
Oh,
In some cases, and sometimes it's just a person that doesn't know any better making a statement, and that becomes fact. That type of thing. It happens all the time. But I feel very lucky that I live in a city that has public access. That has the
that's
ability
right.
for me to be able to produce, the hundreds of shows that I've been involved with, other people's or mine, what have you. And whether it be on site here, or we do it third party, or we do it on our own and bring it in, or rent equipment and bring it out. So just something that's very exciting for those people that especially nonprofits that need to get information out. I have a TV show that I'm trying to put together as part of my foundation called Nonprofit Spotlight, which is basically an hour show focused on each individual nonprofit agencies, giving them their time, 56 minutes or what have you of talk time about their agency, what it does, who it impacts and benefits, maybe a little call out service or whatever the station will allow on that promotion side of it. And of course, let sponsors be able to help pay for the small amount of expense that it takes for it. But the idea is that, it's providing a significant value to the community for what really is resources that a lot of companies have. They just simply don't use it. My nonprofit program, our kids are always looking for space. Always looking places they can audition, places that they can perform, place they can, train or what have you, and still finding it is almost impossible. And we don't want to go to too many people because you burn bridges that way.
Oh, okay.
So,
some time ago, the city of Portland had these meetings, and what they're trying to do is they want groups of people. They have many. You take a studio like this and twice the size, and fill with tables, put just regular Portland citizens in it.
Okay.
And I remember even Mayor Katz. That was one of the first ones I
haven't
went
talked
to.
to Vera in a long time.
They wanted you to cut down of all the lists. They wanted you to cut down whatever thing you wanted. And I remember we looked at certain project. Okay, you'd mark that. But one lady, kind of in back, said something like, cable access, that would cut off with something like the freedom of freedom of talking,
Right.
freedom of speech.
Yep.
She said something very relevant to, and I've always remembered that she didn't want to lose cable access no matter what.
And people don't realize that if you look at what's on television today, if you are a private citizen of the stuff you watch today, how much control over do you have of the content? If the answer is 0.0%, which is the majority of the population, then what's stopping from someone to get on there that has some of that control to tell you what to think? Or tell you this is what the truth is, or this is the right point of view to have? Now, most of the time it's for entertainment purposes, absolutely, but if you're talking about trying to provide a significant resource for a demographic, for instance, teens that might be in trouble or thinking of suicide and they'll need kind of help, but they're afraid to call a suicide hotline. They don't want to talk to their parents. They won't talk to the school. What's wrong with having an opportunity for a nonprofit or individual to go in and say, oh, okay, let's have a show about suicide for teens so that they know that they're not alone and that there's no reason to do that and that there's plenty of options, to find your way into a healing situation and then move on with your life into something that's better than what you thought the previous item was that's got you all depressed. Lots of different avenues. If you didn't have public access, you wouldn't be able to provide that. In some cases, you wouldn't even have public access representation of government meetings. City council meetings, for instance, they're not televised, with very few exceptions. TVC-TV does it and some public access stations.
Right.
But if you look at all the different city governments that make decisions around the United States, the percentage is probably so insignificantly low of what actually gets out for the public to view or even make any comment or suggestions or any kind of impact to it. It's amazing. And the fact that we have that capability with public access and sometimes government access if the program supports it, is awesome, and freedom of speech is right. I could sit here and talk about anything I wanted to, and whether
That's
I'm right
right.
or not,
That's
in
right.
the viewer's eyes, I can still say it, and I don't have to worry about anyone coming down at me. I don't have to worry about anyone yelling at me. You know, if
Being fired.
if I threaten somebody, you know, that's another situation, but that's immature anyway. But right, I don't have to worry about being fired unless I say something inappropriate. There's a difference between speaking my mind and being inappropriate, right?
Yeah.
So the idea essentially is that she's right. If it's, you know, if it's my one and only source of television broadcasting my speech, because I can't guarantee my television station is going to pick it up. They're not going to guarantee that they're going to even talk to me, that they're going to do a story on me, that they're going to say the story is right. I mean, I have yet to see any kind of press that's been out there that's actually been 100% accurate, because they actually don't fact check anywhere near like they think they do, or people think they do.
Okay.
You know, because they get names wrong, and they get basic common information wrong. That's how you know they didn't check anything, because if they did, people like me, what I do for a job is making sure that things are right, and they don't do that. So it comes down to us to be able to speak for ourselves.
That's right.
If you're on a corner in downtown Portland and you have a sign up, this is my opinion, it's 6 words long, and that's all you have, well, that's not really freedom of speech. Yelling at a group of people, yeah, it's still freedom of speech by definition, but are you really saying anything? If people
To
understand it?
anybody. No.
Right, but if you get on public access, and now you can record it, you can see it live, and you can play it back to your heart's content in some cases, that is true, honest freedom of speech, and it's available for a large audience. You know, hundreds of thousands, I think it was 1 point some million people are watching, you know, public access, depending on what station you're playing on.
Oh.
So you're talking about all the people that watch cable in the entire Portland metro area have access to watch the show.
It's so difficult to get those figures.
It's impossible for
yeah.
us because we don't pay the money to
Yeah,
to
that's
have
right.
those filters or sniffers, whatever.
You were talking about suicide just a bit ago, and we had an excellent show on that from the, I had to track them down.
Did
the suicide people from the service.
Okay.
And it's
Military service, I assume?
military service, absolutely. And you're talking about teens,
Right.
and anybody's out there thinking about that. Just saw it where they finished the bridge, Vista Bridge.
Yes.
Yeah, they just finished the putting the things over it like that.
The guards,
to
right.
keep people from going over. Used to be you put them up to keep from throwing something over.
Right,
Now
debris
you throw yourself over. And,
Right.
And that's
I think it's a lazy way out, honestly, but at the same time, I can understand that a lot of times the mental condition of the individual that's thinking about it is not really thinking rationally about anything. So if you're like, well, the stove is hot, you wouldn't want to put your hand on the stove. If you're consciously thinking about it, you're not going to put your hand on the stove. But if you're not paying attention, or you're distraught, or there's something else going on, or you're just not mentally there, you might very well put your hand on there. I mean,
Yeah,
I've done it on accident. I've leaned back and put my hand on the stove. I didn't realize someone just turned it off, and you
yeah.
know, what have you. But it's no different when it comes to suicide. Is that I don't blame the people that try to commit suicide. I want to help them
yeah.
if I
that's
can,
right.
or get them the help they need. I'm not a professional counselor or anything like that, so I want the professionals to work with them. But you know, there's really other options out there. You know,
That's right. I admire those people that are out there doing that.
right. It's got to be very difficult. I mean,
Yeah,
I work
that's
with
right.
I work with teens now in entertainment and a fun source. I used to be a professional mentor, and our conversations were definitely different. They weren't fun. They weren't easy. Almost always had some kind of a emotion that's involved, and usually laughing was not one of the emotions, or
that's
laugh,
right.
it was more of a crying and run screaming and things like that. So I very much appreciate the people that go out there and put their talent on the line to help other people in the severe situations that I just don't have the mental stress for.
Right.
I can't handle at the moment. So
Well, anyway, I think we're coming to the point where I want to make sure if you've anything else you wanted to say before we're going to go to a different segment here.
okay.
And I didn't know if you had anything else or summary about what we're
Sure.
talking about.
Well, summarize the whole thing is
Right.
for my programs, Portland Teen Idol, for Darkwing Foundation when it comes to fruition. If people want to get involved, they can just go to portlandtoonidle.com and fill out the information
Okay.
to contact us on that, and or darkwingproductions.com to find out. We do mostly nonprofit work anyway.
For volunteering.
Right.
Okay.
For those that might be interested, Oregon's Got Talent, which is more of an award show for people, is coming up on the 26th. They can go to organsgottalent.com to find out about getting tickets for that nonprofit related event. And if anyone's interested in doing a project that's video production, movie, gaming, gaming is part of our entertainment package as well, and you're looking at over $75,000 in expend, go to ompa.org, ompa.org,
Okay.
and look up about OPIF funding for, how to get an incentive. So if you spend $75,000, you can actually spend a lot more than that and get a discount from the government for spending the money locally here. And
Okay.
any other questions related to volunteer, I'm more to help you. I want to thank you very much for having me on.
No, I appreciate your
it.
coming. Absolutely. What I would like to have them do now is to go to the screen that has the replay times, and then we're going to leave that on for a couple of minutes, and then after that we have a video portion, and it's about Kathleen Dean Moore, former professor of philosophy, environmental ethics, and now a full-time climate activist. She spoke at a recent Draw the Line climate activism event in Portland, Oregon. She took aim at the fossil fuel industry, educating people about industry attempts to move oil, coal, and gas through the Northwest. So this is about 3/4 of an hour. This is apparently a very interesting speech. So if you want to go ahead and put the screen with the replay times up, then that's great.
You are watching the Independent Producers Organization program. This program replays on these channels, at these times, and on these days. Write it down and tell your friends.
Professor Kathleen Dean Moore, for a conversation about nothing less than the survival of the planet. A heated debate about fossil fuel exports in the region has set the stage perfectly for her talk today. So Professor Moore has spent many years pondering the dilemma of right action in a complicated world. So, among other published works, she's the co-editor of Moral Ground, Ethical Action for a Planet in Peril, which is a compilation work of 100 or so great thinkers around the world and their thoughts about the impending climate crisis. So I would just say to you that you should prepare to be challenged and encouraged by what you hear today. So on behalf of all the members of our Climate Action Coalition, including Physicians for Social Responsibility, Greenpeace, 350 PDX, Interfaith Power and Light, and the tireless McKinley family, I present Professor Kathleen Dean Moore.
It is really thrilling to see all of you here today. I mean, it is thrilling to me that you came out here. You know, why are you here? You could be shopping. You could be drag racing. You could be doing any number of soul-devouring things, but instead, you decided to come out here into this community of caring, and I understand that decision completely. Thank you for coming. And I have to say that it's a thrill for me too, and a little bit nervous-making, because I feel that today is kind of a coming out for me. I have left the university so that I could use all my working time towards climate change. So, you don't have to call me Professor Moore anymore. That's all right. You never did. I feel that that is a time when a person who has been active can make the transition to becoming an activist. I don't know quite what that means, but I feel that today is the time to figure it out. And so thank you very, very much. I think your example is going to be huge for me and for each of the other people in this room and beyond. I feel, and you'll have to tell me if you share this, I feel that we're rising on a cresting wave. I feel that all across the country, people all around the world, isn't that right? You have that feeling? Finally. Finally, after a kind of silence, like the silence of an abused spouse, finally we are coming to be able to speak our minds, and we're standing shoulder to shoulder and taking back our rights and our communities and our democracy, our futures, and our health. And it seems as though maybe some of our leaders, maybe, are going to follow our lead. That would be a very good thing. And it's about time. I don't need to tell you that the atmosphere is now collecting every day heat equivalent to the explosion of 400,000 Hiroshima bombs every day, today, and 365 days a year. I've been sending out a quiz to everybody I can think of, and it goes like this. It tells that fact about the Hiroshima bombs, and then it says, if your house is on fire, what should you do? A, stare into the flames and say, this isn't happening. B, loudly debate whether the fire was caused by human agency, an arsonist, or by nature, natural variation in the temperature of the house. C, write grants to study how fast the fire is advancing. D, appoint commissions to study how to adapt to life in the burnt-out rubble of a house that once was inexpressibly beautiful. Of course not. You put out the damn fire. You throw everything you've got to it. There are children in that house. There are billions of children in that house. And according to a new letter from 500 scientists led by a team from Stanford University, I'm sure you got this message as well, by the time today's children have grown to middle age, the life support systems of the earth will be irretrievably damaged unless we take concrete, immediate action. Who are the children? I know one of them. Her name is Zoe, and she's my granddaughter. She's 6. And in the evening, she lies in bed with her nightlight on because she's just a little bit afraid of the dark. And she sings and she giggles herself to sleep. Her new song is laugh, kookaburra, gay your life must be. When she's middle-aged, if we don't take immediate action, the Earth's life support systems will be irretrievably damaged. Water to drink, fresh air to breathe, food systems to sustain her. Zoe? My Zoe? And I hear that child giggling, and I say to myself, that's it. It's over. I'm not going to do anything in my working life but try to make the world safe for the laughter of children who are just a little bit afraid of the dark. Well, the first thing then that is very important to say is we can do this. Yes. We can. We can keep the temperature rise below 2 degrees, which gives the children at least a chance. Gives them at least a chance for a thriving life. And James Hansen, as you well know, ran the numbers. If we start this year, 2013, and achieve a 6% global reduction in carbon emissions this year, 6% every subsequent year, and at the same time, if we begin a massive reforestation plan and a massive soil sequestration campaign, we can keep the temperature below 2 degrees Celsius rise. Yes. We can. If we wait until 2020, it's a 15% rise. If we wait until 2030, it's too late. So that's our work this year, 6%. We can do that. The second thing I want to say is I want to be really clear about what I believe. There may not be any doubt, but I come to this as an environmental ethicist. And the thing that becomes clear to me is that although climate change is a scientific issue and we're grateful for the help of people like James Hansen and other scientists, and although it's a political and an economic issue, global warming is primarily a moral issue. It's a result of a moral failure, and it calls for a moral response. So it's not just that it's monumentally stupid, it's wrong to wreck the world. What could be clearer? And to take what we need for our profligate lives and to leave this ransacked and dangerously unstable world for our children, that's not worthy of us as moral beings. And to let it all slip away, all those little lives, the plants and the animals, the song of a frog, the stripes in the throat of a lily, the scent of a Douglas fir, to let it slip away because we're too busy, or because we have to get the kids to soccer practice, or because we don't care enough, that's wrong. And when fossil fuel companies, to make astonishing and unimaginable profits, show themselves willing to take down the systems that sustain our lives, to sustain human life as we know it on Earth, that's moral monstrosity on a cosmic scale. That's what we're up against. This glibness from the oil companies, this kind of blithe disregard, this disdain that the fossil fuel companies show for us and for the world, that's what angers me. Don't worry, Rex Tillerson says, who made $320 million last year as the chairman of ExxonMobil. Human beings have adapted for millennia. We will adapt to this. And then that wonderful the advertisement you've seen about the resiliency of the Earth. Maybe you've seen it. It's a picture of the globe, beautiful picture of the globe from space. And it's a mobile ad, and underneath it says, Mother Earth is a tough old gal. That kind of disdain. I wrote to them, and I said, if the Earth were your mother, she would grab you in one rocky hand and hold you underwater until you no longer moved. a philosopher, and I'm not supposed to say things like that. That's not philosophical, that is more like ranting. And what we need is moral reasoning, and I do believe that. You know, I don't want to be glib either. What we need is moral reasoning. We need to be clear about what we care about, and we need to give reasons to support those. And that these reasoned public discourse is what we need, a reasoned public discourse that allows us to affirm our deepest beliefs, check them against our experience and the experience of other people. So scientists have reached an overwhelming consensus on the facts of climate change, backed up by evidence. What we need is a corresponding consensus about the moral urgency of climate change. The moral urgency of climate change backed up by our very best reasons. So some years ago, maybe 5 years ago now, my colleague Michael Nelson and I decided that what we could do as philosophers is try to create this international conversation about what we really care about. So we wrote to about 100 of the world's moral leaders, people like Desmond Tutu and Wangari Maathai and the Dalai Lama, and we asked them, in 2,000 words or less, to answer this question. Do we have a moral obligation to the future to leave a world as rich in possibilities as our own? We got back a stunning set of responses, and we put them together and categorized them and came up with 14 really good reasons why we have an obligation to stop climate change now for the sake of the future. I won't read all of them, but for the survival of humankind, for the sake of the children, for the sake of justice, to prevent the greatest violation of human rights the world has ever seen, because compassion requires it, because we love the world, for the sake of all forms of life on the planet, and for the stewardship of God's creation, and the list goes on. So I thought that today it would be worthwhile pausing just for a little while to talk about some of those reasons, just to be reminding ourselves why we came out on a lovely day to engage in this kind of action. I've chosen 3. Philosophers can't help themselves. Everything in philosophy comes in 3s. And in fact, if you're taking notes today, this is going to be really easy. I have 3 points to make, and each point has 3 subpoints. I'm going to ask, why are we doing this work? What makes it hard and challenging? And third, what do we need to do? Okay, so first of all, why do we need to stop climate change? Well, one reason I've picked out, maybe randomly, is for the sake of justice. And we all know that climate change is a violation of justice. And the problem isn't just that people are going to suffer, but that they're going to suffer unjustly, in violation of any principle of equitable distribution. And that some of us are going to enjoy the presumed advantages of the reckless consumption of fuels and fossil goods, and in the process we're going to make some of us insanely rich. And at the same time, other people are going to suffer from this profligate burning because we're offloading the consequences of our actions onto the people who have never known its benefits, won't know its benefit, and are powerless to resist. Who are the people who are powerless to resist? Who are the ones with no voices? Future people? Plants and animals? Marginalized people, geographically marginalized, peoples on the margins of the continent, people on the margins of the economy, and the children. Who speaks for them? What in God's name did they do to deserve what's coming at them? And while I'm asking about deserving, what did the oil companies deserve to get these riches? You know, Carl Safina wrote in this book, he says, this is our shame, not only because we choose it, it's shame because the unborn who did not choose it will come saddled with all conceivable consequences. Shame because the poor who did not choose it will be hit hard and worst. That is not merely unsustainable, that is unjust. So that's the first reason that I would cite for you, and then I see your head shaking. I'm telling you what you already know, and I apologize for that. You already know that if we don't act to slow climate change, to stop the oil industry, that we will be betraying our children. So let's talk about the kids. Of course they didn't make this mess. Of course they don't deserve what's coming at them. Nevertheless, they're going to have to live in whatever's left of the world after we get done using it up, wrecking it. Water shortages, collapsed agricultural systems, collapsed fisheries systems, spreading disease, wars for resources, already documenting increasing violence in the overwhelming temperatures, great massive movements of people driven from their homes. So I asked my friend Brian Doyle, he's a Portland poet, you must know Brian. I said, Brian, put this in words for me. Why do we have this obligation to our children? And here's what he wrote me. Because we swore and vowed to every god we ever imagined or invented or dimly sensed that we would care for our children with every iota of our energy when they came to us miraculously from the sea of the stars. Because they are the very definition of innocent, and every single blow and shout and shiver of fear that rains down upon them is utterly undeserved and unfair and unwarranted. Because we used to be them, and we remember dimly what it was like to be small and frightened. And I would add to that, because we promised them. Our children came into the world, we held them in our arms, and with tears in our eyes, we promised them that we would give them the world, that we would do whatever was necessary to keep them safe in that world. And so here's what obsesses me. What are we going to say when we come toward the end of our lives and our grandchildren come to us with their own babies in their arms and they ask us what we did to stop climate change? And before we can bring our shaking voices to answer, they're going to interrupt us and they're going to say, don't tell me you didn't know. You knew. Don't tell me you thought there was time. There wasn't. Don't tell me you didn't know what to do. Anything would have been better than nothing. Don't tell us that the forces against you were too great. Nothing is greater than the forces against us now. Reason number 3, I thought that since we were in this beautiful space, that we ought to make some sort of reference at least to divine creation. Do you remember, perhaps, coming into a space just like this and singing for the beauty of the earth, for the glory of the skies, some of you? And the last line, our grateful praise. Our grateful praise. You know, climate change, I believe, is a failure of reverence. It's a failure to honor and protect all the little lives in the forests and the seas and the bird frog, all the things of creation. Now, I don't know if you believe that the world was created by God, or if you think that it was created by the creative urgency of the universe, and it doesn't really matter. If it's God, do not think for 1 minute that God is indifferent to the fate of his creation. God is the one who took the time every single day to say, and it was good. And I don't know if an omniscient being can feel grief, but I can imagine God pressing his fist against his mouth in sorrow and in rage to keep from crying out in the night. And if God is out there crying out, how can we hear him if it's not in the storms and in the floods and in the droughts? But let's just say that you don't believe in God. And let's say you think that the world was created by this beautiful creative urgency that has created all the universe and the solar system and the planets. Even under those circumstances, you recognize, I'm sure, that this world, this planet is irreplaceable. These life forms are irreplaceable. They're essential. They're beautiful and fearsome. They are beyond human understanding. They are crazy creative. That kind of language, that's the language of the sacred. So even if you believe that God didn't create the world, but that it created itself, even so, reckless destruction is a failure of reverence. So that's what I would offer you in my way of reasons, those 3 reasons for why we need to take action, and we really can't wait. There are many, many other reasons, but those are the 3 that speak strongly to me. Now, before I go on to the second thing, I want to check the mic. Are you hearing me all right in the back? Okay. Would you rather I backed away so I don't pop my peas? Okay, then what I want to do is move on to the second major topic, which is what is making it hard? Why has it been so hard for us to take action? What's blocking us? When we have these overwhelming reasons to act that we've just articulated, reasons that are based on our most fiercely held values, Why is it so hard to get moving? And I believe it's because we believe three things that are false. So let me offer you up these three falsehoods that I think make it very hard for us to move forward and for our neighbors to move forward. And for all the people who aren't here to move forward, in case they create some sort of talking points for other people. Now here I might be challenging you a little bit. First of all, I don't believe what everyone is saying is that we have met the enemy and he is us. I want to be really careful about that because it's really tricky. You all know what externalization is, right? That the reason that the fossil fuel industry creates such beautiful, incredible profits, for one reason, is that it externalizes its costs on the universe, on us and our children. It clears the air through our lungs. It clears the water through our digestive systems. That is an externalization of its cost. And what we are seeing today, I do believe, is the externalization of shame. And that this may be one of the biggest triumphs of big oil, to make consumers blame themselves for climate change, even while the corporations are spending billions of dollars to transform us into mindless consumers of self-destructive and cheap consumer goods and fossil fuels. To make us blame ourselves, even while they're leveraging their bribes to Congress to be sure that we don't have alternative ways to heat our homes, to travel to our jobs, and to find some way to ease our grief at this fundamental disconnection from the earth that we love. So when I hear people say, we have met the enemy and it is us, I say in my most philosophical voice, that's bullshit. Of course, we should spend and invest and work and travel more thoughtfully. That's huge. Of course, we should all dramatically cut our use of fossil fuels. And that said, I didn't cut corners and cause an oil gusher in the Gulf of Mexico. And I'm not the one who's doing my best to undermine the EPA. And I'm not lobbying, or what we call bribing Congress, to open drilling in the Arctic Ocean. I didn't cut funding for alternative energy sources. I'm not sitting around in a boardroom plotting how to use every loophole and law and lawyer and lie to run over the people who are trying to protect their homes. The point I want to make is that the big oil companies are very happy to claim that they are simply responding to public demand. But it is very clear how much the corporations have been manipulating public demand. So we have met the enemy, and I'm going to do everything I can to make sure it isn't me. But while big oil is externalizing all its other costs on me, I will not allow them to externalize the moral shame of its attack on the earth. That's one. Number two falsehood that I think is making a lot of trouble for us. Now, this one was called to my attention very recently by a person who emailed me. I get lots of emails out of the blue telling me how wrong I am about various things. And that's really useful, because of course I am. And then I get a chance to fix it. What he tells me is that do not be deceived. Climate change is not about climate change. Really. What is it? Now, I have to tell you a story. So I'm at this meeting of journalists in Missoula, and afterwards, just by happenstance, I happened to walk out the door and walk home with the representative from the American Petroleum Association. Huge man. Trench coat, shaved head, like big man. And I just decided I'm going to engage him in some conversation. And I start the conversation by saying, "Oh, do you have children?" He turns to me and he puts his chest in my face. And he says, "Don't you ever underestimate the power of the fossil fuel industry." I go, that's the first thing you said today that I believed. What I think we're seeing is that climate change has become much more than climate change. The struggle to slow or stop climate change is also a struggle to reclaim democracy. Yes? Congress, and we will see about the president, are bought and sold like commodities, like corn or pork bellies. And the top 5 contributors to the last election, all of them, big oil. Fossil fuel industries spent $450 million to buy the last election. That's cheap if it allows the industry to continue to make those kind of profits. Exxon, and I'm quoting here our friend Bill McKibben, last year Exxon made a higher annual profit than any company in the history of money. Wow. Now Plato had it figured. Way back, Plato had it figured. He wasn't a fan of democracy because he thought that democracies were essentially unstable. That every democracy will ultimately, sooner or later, turn into a plutocracy, the rule by the rich, because you can always buy votes. And every plutocracy will necessarily, eventually evolve into anarchy, because at some point, the people won't put up with it anymore. It's very clear to me that we have reached the point of the plutocracy. What's not clear to me is whether we're going to be able to turn around and restore or regain a democracy, or whether we will have to move into anarchy and smaller groups and try to figure this out for ourselves. But I think it's that serious, the situation that we face right now. I also think that the struggle to slow or stop climate change is beyond climate change. Also, it's a struggle to reinvent who we are as human beings. That climate change has everything to do with the systematic dehumanization of persons on Earth. That climate change is what happens. These enormous profits are what happens when people believe that they are essentially individual, that they thrive in competition with everyone else. When they believe in the essential dualism of all creation, that humankinds are the pinnacle of creation, separate from and better from all the other creatures on Earth who exist only to serve our own needs and derive all their value from their value to serve our greed. Or whether when you believe in human exceptionalism, the notion that we're exceptions to all the ecological rules that govern the rest of the world. We had to believe that in order for capitalism to survive. In order for it to be okay to do what capitalism does, we had to have that worldview that was based on competition between individuals and the absolute reduction of all the rest of the world to mere material brutes. So what we have here is a chance to reimagine ourselves and to notice that this, what I'll call the Enlightenment worldview, this individualist, materialist, dualist, exceptionalist view, is a little blip in the history of humankind that arose simultaneously with capitalism, and my guess is that it will leave the planet when capitalism finds another place. What will take its place is what indigenous people, all the religions of the world except for the desert religions, and all the ecologists are telling us is true about human beings, that we are essentially members of communities of interdependent, interconnected parts, that the thriving of the whole depends on the thriving of the parts, that the thriving of the parts creates the thriving of the whole. We're not exceptions to the rules. We also are part of the earth that is finite and bound by these intricate interdependencies. So the struggle against climate change isn't only about climate change, it's a pivot point in human history. It's what has been called the Great Turning. It requires a new set of answers to the three big questions. What is the world? What is the place of a human being on the planet? And how then shall we live? Finally, I want to talk about the third mistake that I think makes this so hard. And that's the mistake that says this is hopeless, that there's nothing we can do. It's over, it's done. And that even if it weren't, there's nothing I can do as an individual in my life that's going to make any difference. You know, I was at a conference up in Sitka, and one of the people there got a phone call from her daughter, and his daughter says, "Hi, Mommy, where are you, and what are you doing?" And she said, "Well, I'm in Sitka, Alaska, and today my friends and I are going to save the world." And the little girl says, "Oh, well then I better let you go." You know, we laugh at ourselves when we say we're going to try to save the world, but it's about that, isn't it? We laugh at our ambitions, but it's about that. Okay, so let's face it, that our options are limited. Our cities and our homes and our transportation systems are disgracefully designed. Destructive ways of living are protected by tangles of profit and power around the world. Corporations are acting like psychopaths, and we have run out of time. That's where we are. And Gus Speth, the former dean of the forestry people over at Yale, says all we have to do to destroy the planet's climate and ecosystem and leave a ruined world to our children and our grandchildren is to keep doing exactly what we are doing today. This is a problem. We built a society that's fixated on the future, and so we are readily disempowered by hopelessness. And I want to say that we're disempowered also by hope, that we need to leave them both aside. So blind hope, it's going to be fine, relax. Everything's going to be fine, is a kind of moral abdication. I don't have to do anything. And the earth is going to hell no matter what I do. That kind of blind despair, that's a kind of moral abdication, because I don't have to do anything then. So either I have this kind of blind hope, in which case I don't have to do anything, or I have blinding despair, in which case I don't have to do anything. Lucky me, either way, I don't have to do a darn thing. But that's a fallacy, a false dichotomy. But because between this hope and the despair is this broad moral ground that we call personal integrity, wholeness, moral integrity, acting in such a way, I'm sorry, I keep reading, that we honor our moral beliefs, to live gratefully, because we believe that life is a gift. Not because we believe we're saving the world, because we believe life is a gift. And to act reverently, because we believe the world is reverent, because we believe the world is sacred. To live simply, because we don't believe in taking more than our fair share. To act lovingly toward the earth, because we love it. Do you see what I'm saying? That there are motivations for acting that are beautiful and powerful and have nothing at all to do with the consequences of our action. Instead, they have everything to do with our moral motivations and consistency with what we believe is right and true. And what this means then is a fierce, tireless, and maybe ultimately tragic defense of the world against those who would wreck it. That, I think, is true. So what are we going to do? Barbara Kingsolver. You know this one? If you run out of hope at the end of the day, rise in the morning and put it on with your shoes. I would say if you run out of integrity at the end of the day, rise and put that on with your shoes. Either way, 3 things I think we can do. I call them the 3 C's. Conscientious objection, creative disruption, and courageous, relentless citizenship. Okay? So let's talk a little bit about conscientious objection. This is a call to a way of life the call to conscientious objection is a response to a way of life that reduces us to consumers rather than moral agents. Now, soldiers used to say hell no to an unjust war. Can we say the same thing to an unjust but far more disastrous economic system? In other words, can we find the gumption to refuse to let big oil make us foot soldiers in its war against the world? What I'm saying is that every decision we make, how we travel, whether we travel, how we heat our homes, how we educate our children, how we work, how we invest our money, how we allow others to invest our money, speaks to who we are. And that by our decisions we can say, I believe in this, and I don't believe in that. I won't participate in that. I will fully invest myself in this. And don't think that those kind of objections to the system don't matter, because studies show that the one most powerful way to influence people to change is to show them that another person they respect, that would be you, has made a change. So conscientious objection, I think, is a joyous and liberating response. This is divestment. This is the bicycle. This is local food. This is the well-insulated home. This is recycled paper. This is the birth control pill. This is the potluck. This is the garden. This is the poison-free yard. These are all the things I believe in, and this is what I will do. And a note to parents. We have parents. Okay, and a note to grandparents. This is how to free your children from the tyranny of consumerism. I do believe we have a parental responsibility to be clear with our children about what they need, and that this is our chance. This is our chance to make good decisions about what they need and to refuse what they don't. So conscientious objection certainly applies to our decisions as parents. We can't be afraid not to buy them the right kind of soccer shoes. Creative, well, that's okay. We got some soccer parents here. That was applause from the soccer moms. We're feeling the kind of so the first C then would be conscientious objection. Hell no. I will not be a foot soldier in the war against the world. You can't make me do that. I will say, hell no, I won't be part of that. The second one, creative disruption. And this is what you all are involved in. The way I understand this is that we're trying to make moral arguments that speak to people, but that they're abstract. Almost everything I've said so far today is really abstract. We have to find a way to make the moral arguments in people's faces, and we have to give them moral muscle. And that this takes imagination, and it takes creative action that's based on all the wonderful, joyous human arts, music and theater, street parades, children's choirs, literature, all these beautiful human expressions of grief and glory, a call to witness, to tell the truth about the moral consequences of an oil-filled future. So if it's the truth that big coal is going to destroy the dreams of children, then I think we're going to have to tape the photos of the children to the tracks and force somebody to decide to run over them. I know. And if we can't do that, then can we face up to the facts that they are destroying the children? Or are we going to back away from that? I think we have to invite the children to draw pictures of their dreams and invite the drills to go through those pictures of the children's dreams. We have to find some way to make people understand the enormity of what is being done. This is the choir singing at the crossing. Sometimes it's funny, sometimes it's sad. This is the hearse that follows the fracking trucks everywhere they go. These are the funeral bouquets that they turn off to the logging site. It isn't always cute and it isn't always funny. But whenever you have a massive moral failure of government, when you have massive lying, somebody's going to have to tell the truth. And my suggestion is that our banners be banners that tell the truth, not just slogans, but truth-telling banners. What is going on? History's our guide. Every point in human history, in America at least that I've been able to see, have been the result, when we've had a major change, it's been the result of a rising wave of moral affirmation. You look back in history, a moral affirmation, we hold these truths to be self-evident, and the world changed forever. Another moral affirmation, on the first day of January in the year of our Lord 1863, all persons held as slaves within any state shall be thenceforth and forever free. And the direction of history reversed its flow. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up, and the troopers and the growling dogs stumbled back. Not right away, but they stumbled back. Hell no, I won't go. And a war ended. Not easily, not right away, but eventually. Earth shall be whole and life-sustaining, and humankind joyous and just. I don't want to say it's easy, but it'll be easier and lots more fun if it's creative. And if it uses all the forces, all the joyous, imaginative forces of the human mind to create this kind of truth-telling culture. And then finally, courageous and relentless citizenship. This is where the personal becomes the political. This is where democracy takes shape. This is where you make your voice heard by crying out in all forms. The first thing you do in the morning and the last thing you do at night, being heard. And now I'm going to say something that is actually backed up by scientific research. Because the question becomes, okay, we can make our voices heard, but what do we demand? What do we say must happen? And so I wrote to my colleagues, my economist friends, and my other kinds of friends who are studying these kind of things, and here's what they say. These are already part of your agenda. I'm so proud. I'm so pleased. Number 1, stop, block, and prevent all investments that expand fossil fuel infrastructure. This means no coal port expansion, no coal trains, no liquid natural gas depots, no pipelines, no new roads to carry the equipment, no fracking pads, no suburban megaballs, no Keystone XL pipe. Number 2, immediate implementation of compulsory policies that restrict carbon pollution by price or regulation. It could be any combination of any of these, but we will not make progress until we are paying the real price in taxes that we're already paying the real price in the health of our children. 78% of the people in America support a progressive revenue neutral tax at the wellhead. When is the last time that 78% of Americans agreed on anything? And to have this kind of agreement on this seems to be a clear mandate for the government to move ahead. British Columbia is doing it, I don't know, California seems to be doing it. So here's what I want to say about democracy, that it's true that big oil has soaked the congressional representatives in natural gas and oil. It's up to us to hold their feet to the fire. And then perhaps our elected leaders are going to find the will to help us put out the fire that would destroy our homes and our livelihoods and the beautiful and life-sustaining planet. So let me end by thanking you. I admire you so, so deeply. I am so grateful for you, for your courage, for your investment of energy and time and expertise. And I want to leave you with just this one quotation. It's from Clarissa Estes. Do not lose heart. We were made for these times. Yes, for years we have been learning, practicing, been in training for, and just waiting to meet on this exact plane of engagement. I recognize a seaworthy vessel when I see one. There have never been more able vessels in the water than there are right now across the world. And they are fully provisioned and able to signal one another as never before in the history of humankind. There will always be times when you feel discouraged. I too have felt despair many times in my life, but I do not keep a chair for it. I will not entertain it. It is not allowed to eat from my plate. I hope you will write this on your wall. When a great ship is in harbor and moored, it is safe. There can be no doubt. But that is not what great ships are built for. Together, we are a great ship, and we are under sail.